and we are here today. I'm joined by my colleague in the Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships, Willie Lopez, who will provide an introduction in just a little bit, but he's going to be talking about all things financial aid, the foundations, the basics of financial aid. So if you do have any questions about anything that is being presented today, please utilize that Q&A button that you see at the very bottom of your screen as the chat will be disabled. Willie, would you like to go ahead and provide an introduction and go ahead and get started as well?
Yeah, so hi y'all, my name is Willie Lopez. I am a UCSB alum from the class of 2022 with a sociology major and minor in education. I've been working in the Office of Financial Aid throughout this year so far, and I can't wait to present to you all about some of the foundations in our office. So some criteria or some of our agenda points that we're going to go over today is going to be the financial aid application, how aid is calculated, types of grants, scholarships, and loans that are available, as well as what work study means and how you can go and utilize that as part of your financial aid award. So there are two forms of applications that come with financial aid that the student must fill out prior to accepting or making a decision for what school they will choose to attend in the fall. And that is the FAFSA application or the CADA application. The FAFSA is primarily for U.S. citizens or eligible non-citizens, and they do require a federal student aid login that you can go and apply for the FAFSA on there. And it has guiding step-by-step instructions on how to fill everything out, as well as any informational tools that you may need in order to get the necessary information you need. The CADA is very similar to the FAFSA, but this is primarily for students that follow under the DREAM Act or are AB 540, AB 2000, or SB 68 eligible. So these are for students that are non-citizens, but they fall under the California DREAM application settings, and they can go and apply for federal student or state aid this way, and they're eligible for just as many things as FAFSA, except not for federal loans or federal grants. So instead, the California Academic Commission will go and allow for other forms of financial aid to apply for their student aid. Both applications are due on March 2nd, which is the California priority deadline, and they must be submitted promptly in order to be eligible for the main forms of aid, including Pell Grant, California State Grant, and the Middle Class Scholarship, which are the highest forms of gift aid that are given throughout the state and the country. So a reminder is that even though there was a change in federal policy a few years ago, California DREAM Act is still a state law. So if you do not have to qualify for DACA in order to apply, since the DACA is protected under state law. So all DACA recipients or DACA eligible students are still able to apply for the CADA. So for California residency, if you don't have established residency by being born here or moving here as a younger student, then you do have other alternatives that you can use to apply and show eligibility for your California residency. And those include the AB 540, which those criteria include being attended a high school in California for at least 3 years, or graduated from a California high school, or received your GED here. The AB 2000 is similar, but the difference is that you need a total of 3 years of attendance in a California elementary, middle school, or a combination. And it does not need to be consecutive attendance, or you need at least 3 years worth of high school credits from a California high school. So these forms of California residency are typically utilized for the CADA application so that non-citizen students can still verify their California residency and qualify for gift aid such as the California grants or the middle class scholarship. So some financial information that the FAFSA and the CADA utilize is different for our two bracket of students. For dependent students, which are students that are under the age of 24, non-married, non-emancipated, all those other criteria. Basically, if you are still living or under the protection of your parents, will go and need this necessary information of family size, income, and tax information from your eligible year. For 2024-25 FAFSA application, which was this last year's application, they would use 2022 tax information. For all you guys that are applying for the next FAFSA application, by March 2nd, you'll be filling out the 2025 to 26 application, which will use 2023 tax information. So just keep in mind for that. And they also use assets, which is bank accounts, investments, businesses, rental properties, etc. Those pieces of information are utilized to calculate your student aid index. The student aid index is used by our office and by schools all around the country in order to calculate how much student aid that you can qualify for, which will include grants, scholarships, and loans that can be eligible to cover your expenses and your overall budget as a student. Now, the difference with dependent and independent students is that independent students are students that are above the age bracket, are married, military, or emancipated minors. All independent students will just fill in their own information. They don't need any parent information in order to get their SAI, to calculate how much financial aid they need. So, dependent students is primarily what we use to indicate, and if for whatever reason the FAFSA information doesn't reflect your change from dependent to independent status, just please contact our office and we can review that information with the student in the present. So some funding sources for FAFSA applicants. So some of these include the university level, federal, state, and private. So for the university level, we offer all forms of financial aid scholarships and grants that don't apply to the students' expenses. But we also include some loan eligibility as well for any students that need some additional financial aid help. But the two primary sources of financial aid that can cover expenses come from the federal level and the state level. Federal level include Pell Grant, federal loans, including unsubsidized or subsidized loans, as well as Parent Plus loans that students can be eligible for. And then the state offers not only the Cal Grant, but they also offer the middle class scholarship and work study that students can use to get a job on campus and still utilize their financial aid efforts in there. But students do not have to use state, federal, or university money to go and pay for school. They can also look for outside sources such as the Taco Bell Live Más Scholarship, the Ronald McDonald Scholarship, the Jackie Robinson Scholarship. You name it, you can look it up and you can try to see if any of those outside scholarships can apply to your award letter. But you can also use outside loan sources in order to pay for expenses as well. The caution that we do give for students that look for outside loans is that we do ask that you apply well early in order for the loan to be received by you and pay for your expenses, as those loans are typically not paid to our billing office and you need to pay for those student fees earlier rather than later. So the difference with CADA applicants is that they still receive all the same kind of financial aid that you can be eligible for, except for federal. So CADA applicants still can apply and get UCSB scholarship, work study, UCSB loan, or California Dream Loan, as well as Cal Grant middle class scholarship, and still look for those private scholarship opportunities. But federal loans, Pell Grant, and federal work study are not eligible for CADA students. With this being said, that's why we still utilize UCSB and California Dream Loan, as well as institutional work study, to go and counteract these changes that CADA applicants are not eligible for. So now getting into a deeper dive of what all of these grants and scholarships and the requirements are for. So for the Pell Grant, we take a look at family income and the poverty level in order to see how much you can qualify for the Pell Grant. So for the Pell Grant, the maximum amount a student can receive for the 23-24 academic year is 7,395, and full-time enrollment must be 12 units or more. We don't have the next year's academic grant numbers just yet because they're still being calculated in part with the federal budget, but those numbers will be coming by the time FAFSA is due. And one thing with Pell Grant is that enrollment does affect how much money you do receive for the Pell Grant. So if you don't take full-time enrollment, then you could receive a lesser amount based on how many units you are enrolled by our census dates. So for state grant, which is Cal Grant A or B, You can use the migrantinfo.csac.ca.gov website in order to get more information there. But the general information is that Cal Grant is based on not only GPA, but also income and asset ceilings that are utilized to see how much a student can qualify for. Unlike the Pell Grant, the maximum amount that you can receive for Cal Grant is 13,752 for the 23-24 year. And this one is you either get all of it or you get none of it. So if you qualify for Cal Grant with all the criteria that's met in that website, then you will get the full maximum amount that is offered. And the priority deadline for this, as well as the Pell Grant, is March 2nd. One other thing to note is for the GPA, most high schools will send the GPA of the student with their official transcripts to the university, and that will be used to calculate for the GPA requirement of Cal Grant. And then once you do come to a four-year university at either the state or the UC level, the institution themselves will handle the GPA submission. So it's nothing left on the student's end for those situations. However, you do want to contact your school to make sure that the GPA is handled by them, because some schools do require that students apply for the GPA submission on their own. So just keep that in mind when looking into those. So one other point that we want to point out is the Blue and Gold Opportunity Plan, a promise that students who meet the criteria will have the total grant and scholarships at least cover the UC tuition. Now, most of these students that have these requirements all qualify for either Cal Grant, Pell Grant, or some form of UCSB scholarship. So this is just for the rare case scenarios of students that do meet the criteria of needing financial aid, but don't qualify for Cal Grant, Pell Grant, or UCSB scholarships. And that's how we fill in the Blue and Gold Opportunity Plan. Those said requirements are California resident, they demonstrate sufficient financial need, and a household income below 80,000. So most of the time, if you don't see the Blue and Gold Opportunity Plan on your award letter, don't worry. It's likely because you received other forms of financial aid that cover these expenses of tuition and campus-based fees. But if you don't have those fees covered and you do believe you qualify for the Blue and Gold Opportunity Plan, please contact our office and we'd be more than happy to go over your qualifications and see if we can apply this to your award. Another point that we want to bring up is the Native American Opportunity Plan. So for California students who are enrolled in federally recognized Native American, American Indian, or Alaska Native tribes, ensures that in-state system UC tuition and student services fees are fully covered by either UC financial aid or another federal or state financial aid program. For a California member of a tribe that is not federally recognized, additional support may be available through external organizations, including the Federated, Indians of Grattan Rancheria Scholarship Fund. Outside California tribes, we do encourage you to work with your tribe's education office or your campus's Native American Resource Center or your community center to identify scholarship opportunities. This is a great resource that we offer so that students of the Native American tribes and population can still get financial assistance in order to make the most of their education here at the university. So middle class scholarship is a very tricky financial aid eligible plan for students. It's constantly changing and the budget's ever always don't changing throughout the years. But the main things that are consistent with middle class scholarship is that family income can be up to 217,000 and assets up to the same amount. Amount will vary depending on the source of financial aid the student is receiving. So what that means is that if you have other forms of financial aid such as Cal Grant, Pell Grant, or UCSB scholarship, it could lessen the amount of middle class scholarship you're eligible for. But if for whatever reason you don't qualify for some of these other sources of financial aid, middle class scholarship could be higher in order to cover the expense of the financial aid that you would be missing out on, but you'd still be eligible for. So the requirements for middle class scholarship are that you must be a California resident attending a UC or a CSU school. You must be a U.S. citizen, permanent resident, or AB 540 recipient. And you must submit your FAFSA or your CADA application by the March 2nd deadline. So that deadline is very strict with March 2nd. If you are off by a day or so, it will be very strict and will cause you to be ineligible for middle class scholarship. So please be wary of that, and that way you make sure that you submit your FAFSA or CADA application on time. One other note that we want to make with the middle class scholarship is that even though we do usually show this award on your award letter that you receive as part of your acceptance if you are accepted to the university. The award itself is often not awarded on time for the beginning of fall quarter, and you often see the award applied later on during once you begin your academic journey at the university. So just something to keep in mind. It is something that is out of our control. It is for the California government that the finances and the amounts don't come in time, but once they do, or once they are applied, we do try to disperse the financial aid of middle class scholarship to students as quickly as possible. So work study. This one is a common one that students have questions about because they think that it's an amount that is dispersed and given to students as a form of a payment, just like our Pell Grant, or middle class scholarship is. On the contrary, work study is something that is able to be applied for a student's award letter that they can go and present to an employer on campus and say that they are a financial needy student, but are looking to work as part of a paycheck. So this is a great motivator for our employers on campus to go and hire these students so that they can still help the most needy of our students to get more financial aid and more financial assistance, but it is given in the form of a paycheck. You basically work your shift for and then get either biweekly or monthly paychecks, depending on the employer, and that is the way you will receive the financial assistance. And then that way, also the employer doesn't have to pay for the student's paycheck out of their entire fiscal budget. It is then counteracted with either the federal or the state work study program. So that's how it utilizes the employer's benefits, as well as giving students with the most need the chance to work and get additional financial assistance during the academic year. So work study jobs are also very flexible with student hours, but they also understand that you are a student first, and they prioritize that in creating a work balance schedule for you. So they only maximize a 10 to 20 hour work week so that you can still prioritize your academics while still getting the opportunity to work and build great experiences. Some types of work study that are available are federal work study through FAFSA, the Dream Professional Opportunity, which is for DACA recipients, or for the Monarch Opportunity Scholarship, which is for dreamers without DACA. So that's work study in a nutshell. If you have any questions, please leave that for the end, and I'll be more than happy to go in depth with that. So loans. I understand loans can be scary. As a former student trying to avoid loans, it was definitely a scary topic, but trust me, our office tries to answer all your questions and make everything sound a lot easier so that you're able to take out loans and still be able to afford school and understand how everything happens with repayments and interest rates. So to go over some of these loans, we have direct student loans, which there are two options of subsidized or unsubsidized loans. Listed are the amounts that are given at the max for the academic year. So 3,500 for subsidized loan eligibility and 2,000 for unsubsidized loan eligibility per year. Both have an interest rate as of right now of 5%, which we are not sure what the amount will be for the next academic year. The other form of loan that is offered through the federal government, excuse me, is direct Parent Plus loan. Parents must apply for these through studentloans.gov, and these loans do have an interest rate of 8% as of the 23 through 24 academic year. So one big note about these is that when accepting loans of either capacity, you do have to complete a couple of requirements, and those include the master promissory note and the entrance counseling for said loans. Both are just ways so that students can go and understand what the loan entails and what requirements are completed in order to accept the loans, but also understanding what consequences will happen if the loans are not repaid, or what happens if the loans need any kind of extensions or anything like that. So both go in depth so the student has a better understanding of what they're getting into when they sign up for loans and what the steps are after the loans are taken out and how to repay them. Some other non-federal student loans include the California Dream Loan and the UCSB loans. California Dream Loan is only for California DACA recipients that are looking for additional financial assistance. and have a max amount of $4,000 and is based on EFC, which we didn't correct the slides on here on time, but is SAI now. So the student aid index is what calculates how much California Dream Loan is eligible. And the interest rate for this one is just the same as the unsubsidized or subsidized student loans of 5%. The UCSB loan is for all students that attend UCSB, but is typically offered for our incoming freshman students who are looking to afford additional housing opportunities when living as on-campus residents, since it can be a little bit more expensive to live on campus. And this UCSB loan is also based on the student aid index and also has an interest rate of 5%. Okay, so then we also have an example of a award letter for a FAFSA recipient with the lowest SAI possible. As you can see here, we have the California grant, Pell Grant, the UCSB scholarship listed on here as as opportunities for students to get financial aid that does not have to be paid back. We also have for this student that because they are the lowest SAI, we have UCSB health insurance grant that covers the health insurance that is charged by the university. Now, getting into that is the university does charge every student with UCSB health insurance, but it can be waived out if you have adequate or good enough health insurance to waive out of it, and that way you don't have to be charged for it. And then the student can keep their own health insurance that they have through their parents. But if you don't have your own health insurance that you can cover, the UCSB health insurance is a great opportunity for students to have quality health insurance while they are a student, and they have access to health insurance and health resources on campus, and that like such as student health and other health resources that are available on campus that might not be available elsewhere without health insurance. So work study is another thing that's listed on here, and it's listed at 2,400. As mentioned before, this is not an amount that is given out to the student. This is an amount that is utilized by the employer in order to fund the student's paycheck. And then not every student, no student ever on campus has a unsubsidized or a full ride to UCSB, which is the off case that is given that way. So it's always expected that students contribute to their education in some capacity, which is why we offer the student loan eligibility in there, which is why we list the amounts on here. And as you can see with this student, they have their full subsidized loan eligibility on here, as well as some additional unsubsidized loan amounts. And then on this next slide, you see that the award letter is very similar to the FAFSA recipient, but this is for a dream recipient of a California resident with the lowest SAI. So they still get the Cal Grant. They get additional UCSB scholarship to cover the amount of Pell Grant that they would be normally eligible for if they were a FAFSA recipient, but instead it's covered by UCSB scholarship. Then they go and get the health insurance grant as well. Professional experience opportunity, which is the name for federal work study, but for CADA recipients. And then we also offer the California Dream Loan and UCSB loan to cover the other expenses listed on here. Now, to end our presentation, we're just going to get into a couple of common financial aid myths that are told to students that we want to clarify on here. So I'm going to list them here, and then I'll go over why they are myths and why students should be well informed about these. So one common myth is that my parents make too much money, so I won't qualify for aid. We're going to go over why that's not the case for students in the next slide. Only students with good grades get financial aid. My parents aren't U.S. citizens, so there's no way I'll get aid. I can't file my FAFSA or California Dream application in October because I haven't applied to any schools. Oh, I thought I had a answer on the next slide. That is my apologies. So to debunk the first myth, my parents make too much money, so I won't qualify for aid. Well, with the asset ceiling and the income ceiling being so high for California middle class scholarships, we often find that some students do qualify for a portion of middle class scholarship, and they can still qualify for loans. So if you're in a case where you don't want your parents to pay for everything of your education out of pocket, you can always apply for FAFSA or CADA, and you can still apply for some student loans or even qualify for some gift aid either at the federal level through middle class scholarship, or you can get additional financial aid at the university level as well that you could qualify for. So it never hurts to apply, but you'll never know what aid you'll get if you don't apply. For us as a university, we don't go and base our financial aid on grades. We offer our financial aid based on financial income and other income information. So like student family size, or like the assets and stuff like that that I mentioned before. All these things go and calculate a student's student aid index, because we are a need-based institution and we want to give the aid that where we can to students who need the aid the most, not just based on grades. The other point of my parents aren't US citizens, so there's no way I'll get aid. We take a look at a student's California and residency, as well as their US citizenship. So whether you're a US citizen as a student or a California citizen as a student, there is a way that you can get financial aid, because we look at your own academic profile and your family financial situation, not citizenship. So even if your parents are not US citizens, there is still a good opportunity for you to get financial aid by applying through the FAFSA or the CADA. And lastly, I can't file my FAFSA or CADA application in October because I haven't applied to schools. Good thing our application is due on March 2nd. So even if you haven't applied or decided what school you're going to go to, as long as you submit the application by the deadline, you can later select what schools you want to receive your financial aid application, so that they can then receive that information and award you accordingly. And even if you apply in October, as early as some of those students may do it, you can select as many schools as you want, up to, I believe, 20 schools listed. And then from there, if you decide to switch schools or change what schools can receive it, you can always make those changes later on. I know for me, when I applied to several UCs and several CSUs. And though they can all receive my financial aid, ultimately UCSB is the one that used my FAFSA application in order to calculate my aid. So that basically concludes my presentation. Here is the email that you can contact to contact our office. We are open for customer service hours between 10 and 12 in the morning, or again at 1 to 4 p.m. in the afternoon. You can either email us, or you can call our office by joining our financial aid website queue list line, and we'd be more than happy to answer any of your questions as you may have as rising seniors. But that concludes my presentation with, I believe, 30 minutes to spare, so we can go over any questions that you may have, and I'd be more than happy to answer live.
Alrighty, friends, as you guys are thinking of some questions for our lovely presenter in the Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships, I do want to keep you all posted. For those of you that are participating in the summer boot camp series, I'm so excited to welcome you and to also see you all virtually during your designated sessions. If you want to view this recording of the presentation, it will be posted on our YouTube channel. So the link is provided, and I will share it out into the chat as well, but we will most likely post it in the next 2 days. I do want you also to be aware that we will have another presentation by the Office of Financial Aid and Scholarships that is going to be coming up on July 25th. That is a Thursday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. So if you have not already registered for that presentation, it is going to be a separate presentation regarding financial aid literacy. So you can register for that event by going to our virtual admissions events webpage, which I will also share into the chat. It looks like there aren't any questions for our Q&A, so we will stick on for maybe the next 60 seconds to see if there's additional questions, which it looks like we might have gotten one popping up now. So I'm going to take this question and see if our lovely presenter, Willie, can go ahead and address it. And that question is, do all UC, University of California campuses, have the same UC-sponsored financial aid?
So yeah, so all UCs do have similar criteria in regards to institutional aid. Each one will be different, and some may have different criteria than others. But typically on the they all have the same kind of criteria and standpoints to make sure that all students with need-based requirements do get the most financial aid possible in order to cover their educational expenses. So to clarify my answer, all UCs are need-based institutions, just like UCSB. None go and base their requirements of aid based on GPA. We simply use the FAFSA information that is provided, and we'll base students' awards based on that information.
All right. Well, it doesn't look like there's any additional questions. Please keep in mind that the contact information for financial aid is listed on the screen. So if you haven't already, please be sure to take a screenshot of the contact information, or you can go to finaid.ucsb.edu to join the queue list line to speak to a financial aid representative. I thank you all so much for joining today's presentation. If you do have any questions for the Office of Admissions, you're more than welcome to reach out to us at admissions@ucsb.edu. I hope you all have a good rest of your day, good evening, good night. Thank you so much for joining. Bye.